The automatic doors of the shopping mall slid open, and the freezing December wind hit Maya's face. But the cold air outside was nothing compared to the shock that was about to stop her heart. Maya gripped the hands of her three little girls, Hope, Faith, and Joy. They were laughing and singing a messy version of Jingle Bells, their breath forming little clouds in the air. They were happy. Maya was tired, holding cheap grocery bags tight, counting every penny in her head. Then, the world shifted. Above them, a massive digital billboard flickered. The advertisement for diapers disappeared. In its place, a sleek, high-tech ad for Ethelgard Technologies lit up the night sky. A face filled the screen. It was a face 10 feet tall, sharp, handsome, and terrifyingly familiar. Faith, the bold one, stopped singing. She dropped her small candy cane. Her tiny finger pointed up at the glowing giant. "Look," she squealed, her voice cutting through the city noise. "That man. He looks like us." Hope tilted her head, squinting her eyes. "He has my nose, Mummy." "Mummy." Then came the whisper from Joy, the quietest triplet, that shattered Maya's soul. Is he our daddy from the pictures?" Maya froze. The noise of the traffic faded away. The people walking by disappeared. All she could see were those eyes on the screen, Kai's eyes. The man she loved. The man she lost. The man who didn't know these three little girls existed. Her grip on the grocery bags loosened. The glass jar of pasta sauce slipped from her hand and smashed onto the pavement. Crash. Red sauce spilled everywhere, like a wound opening up. But Maya didn't move. She just stared at the screen, whispering one word into the cold night air. Kai. Does Maya run away? Or is Kai closer than she thinks? If you want to find out what happens next in Fragments of Us, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss a chapter of this story. If this scene gave you chills, like this video and drop a comment below, Team Kai if you think he deserves to know, or Team Maya if you think she did the right thing to protect him. Welcome to You Tales. Let the story begin. Maya sat at the small kitchen table, her laptop open, fingers flying over the keys. The glow from the screen lit up her tired face, the kind of tired that came not from sleep, but from a life lived entirely for others. Her hands, slender but calloused at the knuckles, carried the story of endless nights, some spent meeting deadlines, others rocking three tiny humans back to sleep, whispering songs of comfort into ears that didn't yet understand the world but demanded every ounce of love she had. Her eyes were bright, still, despite the faint shadows under them. They held love and fatigue in equal measure, a mixture that somehow made her beautiful. Around her, the apartment hummed with the soft chaos of 4-year-old life. Hope, Faith, and Joy, the triplets who had become her whole universe, darted through the living room in little bursts of energy, chasing one another, their giggles ricocheting off the walls like tiny bells. They weren't identical, not by a long shot, but there was a rhythm to them, a synchrony that made it impossible to think of one without the other. Hope, the eldest in thought if not by minutes, perched on the arm of the sofa, observing her sisters with serious eyes. "Mummy," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "Faith is trying to climb the bookshelf again." Maya glanced up from her screen, forcing a tired smile. "And why do you think that's a good idea?" she asked, trying to keep her tone light, though she felt her chest tighten. "Because," Faith piped up from the floor, crouched as if ready to spring. "There's a red ball on the top shelf. I have to get it." She pointed, eyes wide with determination. Joy, always the mediator, stepped between them with a soft hand on each sister's arm. "Faith, maybe we can ask Mummy first. Then she can help. We don't want anyone to fall." Her small face, round and trusting, looked up at Maya with such faith, no pun intended, that her mother's heart squeezed painfully. Maya laughed softly, shutting the laptop with a snap. "All right, little adventurers, everyone take a breath. Faith, no climbing. Not today." She pulled the littlest one close, brushing a strand of hair behind Joy's ear. "We have rules, my loves, even when the world seems like it's made for exploring every dangerous corner." The girls pouted in unison, but it was the kind of pout that made a mother's heart ache with both love and exhaustion. Hope tilted her head, assessing the situation. "Can we at least look at the ball?" Maya sighed, her shoulders dropping a fraction. "You can look. But remember, our hands stay on the floor, and feet stay on the ground. Promise." "We promise," they chorused, a tiny chant that filled the small apartment with warmth. She watched them for a moment, the quiet satisfaction of seeing her children safe washing over her, though her mind was already racing. Emails, client revisions, the looming deadline for the design project due by midnight. Yet, in this moment, as Joy tugged gently at her sleeve and whispered, "Mummy, you look tired. Can we help you?" She felt a surge of gratitude so strong it made her blink back tears. "Thank you, my loves," she said softly. "You already help me more than you know." Hope grinned, climbing into her lap without permission, wrapping her little arms around her mother's neck. Faith tried to follow, but Maya scooped her up just in time, holding them both close. Joy nestled against her side, content just to be near. And there they were, 3 little hearts beating against her own 3 souls that made every struggle worth it. 3 reasons why her world had narrowed to this small apartment filled with laughter, chaos, and love that was absolute and uncompromising. Maya kissed the top of each head, feeling the fine brush of hair against her lips. "All right," she whispered. "Let's get ready. We have work to do. And a little bit of fun too." Because in Maya's life, work was more than client deadlines. It was keeping her children safe, happy, and loved. And love, even when exhausting and complicated, was something she could never measure or limit. Their apartment smelled like cinnamon and something sweeter, the faint, stubborn hope that love could fill a place even when money could not. A small, slightly lopsided Christmas tree stood in the corner of the living room, its lights blinking unevenly, as if winking at anyone who bothered to notice. Around it, homemade paper snowflakes hung crookedly from strings, swaying gently whenever the air stirred. The whole scene looked like magic made from scraps, but to Maya, it was perfect. The triplets ran around the apartment, their voices weaving through the room like tiny bells. "Mummy, do you think Santa will like the cookies we made?" Joy asked, holding up a slightly misshapen gingerbread man. Her eyes were wide, filled with the kind of innocent hope that could make a mother cry and laugh at the same time. "He'll love them, darling," Maya said, her voice calm, though inside her chest tightened. She was sitting at the kitchen table, a small stack of coins spread out in front of her, counting them again for what felt like the 100th time. She had enough for the small turkey she wanted, a few simple vegetables, and a tiny treat for each girl to hang on the tree. Just enough. Maybe. Faith, bouncing on the balls of her feet, peered at the coins. "Mummy, that's not enough for candy, is it?" Maya smiled tightly, looking at her little adventurer. "Not this time, pumpkin. But we have something better. Love, laughter, and the best cookies in the whole world." Hope, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a paper snowflake in her hand, tilted her head. "But Mummy," she said thoughtfully, "don't you want more? For the tree? For us?" Maya's fingers lingered over the coins. She wanted more than anything, but she also wanted them to understand that Christmas wasn't about the amount of gifts, but the thought behind them. "I want more too, sweetie," she said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "But sometimes, the most special things aren't bought. They're made, or shared, or given from the heart. That's what makes Christmas magical." Joy bounced closer, clutching her little snowflake. "Then can we make more things, Mummy? For the tree?" Yes, Maya laughed, letting herself relax just a little. "Let's make more snowflakes. We can cut them out, and maybe even hang them from the ceiling." She looked at the girls, Hope's serious, observing face, Faith's bold, daring grin, and Joy's gentle, quiet wonder, and felt her heart swell. "That's right. We'll make it the most beautiful Christmas ever." The girls cheered, rushing to the table, scattering bits of paper, scissors, and glue everywhere. Maya counted the coins one last time, her fingers trembling slightly. She had enough. Just barely enough. But it would be enough for them to see the warmth of the season, for their eyes to light up, for their tiny hearts to feel special. And maybe, just maybe, that was all she could do, and all that mattered. Faith looked up suddenly, brow furrowed. "Mummy, can we sing to Santa while we work? Then he'll know we love him." Maya nodded, laughing through her tiredness. "Of course, my little singers." The girls started humming a familiar tune, off-key and joyful. Their voices filled the small apartment, bouncing off the walls, mixing with the scent of cinnamon and the quiet hum of electricity from the blinking tree lights. Maya felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Exhaustion lingered, yes, but under it was something steadier, something stronger. Hope, faith, and joy were safe, happy, and alive. And for now, that was enough. She looked at the tiny, crooked tree, at the paper snowflakes dancing in the air, and whispered to herself, We'll make it beautiful. We'll make it magical. And in that modest, warm apartment, amidst the scattered coins and laughter, magic happened. Not from money, but from love, determination, and the small, careful acts of a mother who refused to let her daughters go without. The automatic doors whooshed open, and Maya stepped into the bustling store, arms heavy with the hope of a small Christmas miracle, and 3 energetic 4-year-olds. Hope, faith, and joy burst ahead, weaving through aisles like tiny comets, chattering at a speed that made Maya's head spin. It was a chaotic, charming ballet. One child darted left, another veered right. And the third, always unpredictable, decided that the bottom shelf was a perfect place to inspect every shiny package. Girls! Maya called, holding up a hand, though she knew it was mostly symbolic. Stay close, okay. Faith spun around, a grin plastered across her face. We are close. See, Mummy, we are super close. Hope tugged at Maya's sleeve. Mummy, can we look at the lights first? The big, twinkly ones. Maya took a deep breath and smiled. Distraction was her first line of defense. Yes, the twinkly lights first. But only if we skip the candy aisle. Do you think you can do that? The girls exchanged glances, eyes wide. We can do it. Joy said, with a soft, earnest tone that always carried a hidden weight of wisdom. Maya exhaled silently. She had learned early on that distraction and bribery were not morally ideal, but they were necessary. And sometimes, they worked. She steered them past the candy aisle, their small hands wrapped in hers like little anchors, and toward the display of twinkling holiday lights. Look at these! Hope exclaimed, pointing to a cascade of blue and gold bulbs. They look like stars fell into the store. Yes, Maya agreed, smiling despite the ache in her shoulders. Stars just for us. As they wondered, small kindnesses appeared like unexpected gifts. An elderly employee, bent and weary, stopped by the girls, eyes twinkling behind thick glasses. And who do we have here? He asked, voice soft. The girls giggled and held out their hands for high fives. He smiled at Maya, a quiet recognition of her efforts. You're doing a good job, young lady, he said. 3 at once. That's real talent. Maya's chest tightened. She nodded, saying softly, thank you. It means a lot. Faith tugged at her hand, pointing toward a high shelf. Mummy, can we get that thing? It's shiny. Maya frowned at the height. Her arm stretched as far as it could, but it wasn't enough. A stranger, tall and kindly, noticed. Need a hand, he offered, reaching up and pulling down the ingredient she needed. Oh, thank you so much, Maya said, cheeks flushed, trying to keep her composure as the girl stared, eyes wide with awe. You're very kind. He shrugged with a warm smile and disappeared back into the crowd. Maya hugged the ingredient to her chest. Every small act of kindness felt like a lifeline in a world that often seemed indifferent. Finally, they reached the small, discounted turkey. Maya examined the label carefully, counting the coins in her mind again. Yes, this would work. A few vegetables, flour, and sugar for cookies, and one little ornament for each girl. Their big splurge. She placed the tiny ornaments in the cart and looked at the girls. Okay, she said, kneeling so she was eye level with them. This is it. Each of you gets one ornament to hang on the tree. Choose wisely. Hope picked a star with a tiny glitter trail, eyes sparkling. I want it to shine for Santa. Faith grabbed a little snowman, holding it like it was made of gold. He looks like he's ready for an adventure. Joy selected a delicate angel, fingers tracing the wings. She'll watch over us, she whispered. Maya's heart thumped painfully, a mix of pride, exhaustion, and hope. She kissed the tops of their heads. Perfect choices. Now, let's go pay before someone decides to rearrange the whole store. The checkout was another trial. Faith reaching for candy again, Hope chatting up the cashier about every light and bell, Joy attempting to hand Maya coins she had found in the bottom of her pocket. Maya navigated it with patience and a smile, counting the coins one final time to ensure they had enough. Finally, bags in hand, the small treasure trove of a Christmas dinner secured, Maya led her little stars out of the store. The winter air outside bit at their noses, but inside their hearts, something warm had already begun to glow. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. And in that tiny victory, Maya whispered to herself, we'll make this Christmas magical. We'll make it ours, no matter what. The automatic doors of the shopping mall slid open, and the freezing December wind hit Maya's face. But the cold air outside was nothing compared to the shock that was about to stop her heart. Maya gripped the hands of her three little girls, Hope, Faith, and Joy. They were laughing and singing a messy version of Jingle Bells, their breath forming little clouds in the air. They were happy. Maya was tired, holding cheap grocery bags tight, counting every penny in her head. Then, the world shifted. Above them, a massive digital billboard flickered. The advertisement for diapers disappeared. In its place, a sleek, high-tech ad for Ethelgard Technologies lit up the night sky. A face filled the screen. It was a face 10 feet tall, sharp, handsome, and terrifyingly familiar. Faith, the bold one, stopped singing. She dropped her small candy cane. Her tiny finger pointed up at the glowing giant. "Look," she squealed, her voice cutting through the city noise. "That man. He looks like us." Hope tilted her head, squinting her eyes. "He has my nose, Mummy." "Mummy." Then came the whisper from Joy, the quietest triplet, that shattered Maya's soul. Is he our daddy from the pictures?" Maya froze. The noise of the traffic faded away. The people walking by disappeared. All she could see were those eyes on the screen, Kai's eyes. The man she loved. The man she lost. The man who didn't know these three little girls existed. Her grip on the grocery bags loosened. The glass jar of pasta sauce slipped from her hand and smashed onto the pavement. Crash. Red sauce spilled everywhere, like a wound opening up. But Maya didn't move. She just stared at the screen, whispering one word into the cold night air. Kai. Maya remembered the night spent in Kai's tiny apartment like they were carved from another world. The city hummed faintly below, a low, steady sound that somehow made their small room feel like an island. Kai, brilliant even then, bent over his laptop, fingers dancing across the keys, building a prototype app with the kind of passion that made the room pulse with energy. Maya, with her sketchbook balanced on her knees, watched him in awe. "You really think this will work?" she asked softly, leaning closer to see the code that meant everything to him. Kai didn't look up at first. His dark eyes were lit with the thrill of possibility. "I don't just think, Maya. I know. One day, people will use this. It'll change the way they live." He smiled at her then, that crooked, boyish smile that made her stomach flip. "And one day, we'll have a life where we can do what we love, and no one can tell us it's not enough." She reached out, brushing a stray strand of hair from his forehead. "I believe you, Kai. Always." Their love was fragile, secret, and perfect, a shelter from the relentless pressure of her parents, who only valued wealth, influence, and appearances. Every stolen moment felt sacred. Every laugh and whisper was a rebellion against the world that wanted her to be someone else entirely. And then came the garden party, a meticulously orchestrated event meant to showcase Maya's family to the neighborhood. Their manicured lawns, the sparkling lights, the polished conversations. Kai had insisted on coming. "Maya," he said quietly as they stepped into the sunlight together, "I have to do this. I can't wait." She squeezed his hand nervously. "Kai, here. Among all of them." "Yes. I can't hide my heart forever," he replied, voice steady but trembling. When the moment came, he knelt before her, laptop open beside him showing the prototype he had worked on endlessly, and a small, twisted wire ring in his hand, the kind of makeshift promise that only love could make. "Maya, I know I have nothing now, but I will build everything. I want to build a life with you. Will you marry me?" The laughter of the party seemed to freeze for a moment, then crash down around them like ice. Her father's voice was loud, sharp, full of disdain. "A leech. A fantasist. This is what you call a proposal." Her mother, equally merciless, added, "Maya, you are far too easily impressed by gutter charm. Look at him. Nothing, absolutely nothing to offer you." Kai's hands trembled slightly, but he held onto hers. Tears glimmered at the corners of his eyes, but his gaze remained fixed on Maya. "You measure a man by his bank account," he said, voice breaking but firm. "One day, that will be the only scale you understand. And you will remember this moment." Maya's face burned, shame and heartbreak mingling in a way that felt like fire in her chest. "Papa. Mama, please," she whispered, but the words died on her lips. Kai rose slowly, brushing off his knees. He looked at Maya one last time, a mixture of sorrow and fierce resolve in his eyes. "I'll go," he said softly, voice barely audible over the murmurs of the crowd. But I will not stop. I will build a life worthy of you, and one day, you will see me, not as a boy, but as a man who never stopped loving you. Then he turned, walking away from her, from the garden, from the world that had rejected him, leaving Maya frozen on the lawn, her heart splintered, her dreams scattered like petals in the wind. Weeks later, Maya discovered she was pregnant. Alone, afraid, disowned, she refused to terminate the pregnancy, though her parents' words rang in her ears: burden, shame, mistake. Every night she whispered apologies into the darkness, believing she had ruined Kai's life, that she had destroyed any future with him, that he would never want to carry the weight of a family he hadn't asked for. She never reached out. The world had been cruel enough, and she had learned to bury her love, her fear, and her hope in the same fragile coffin. The boy she had loved had walked away, and she had stayed behind, broken, determined, and alone, clutching the secret they had shared, the life she carried inside her, and the painful knowledge that some wounds never truly healed. And yet, beneath all that fear, a small ember of hope survived, buried deep and quiet, waiting for a chance, any chance, to ignite again. The low rumble of engines announced them before anyone saw them. 3 black luxury cars slid to the curb, their glossy bodies reflecting the twinkling lights of the mall like silent, dark mirrors. The air seemed to hold its breath as the vehicles came to a smooth stop. A small crowd of shoppers glanced over casually, unaware of the quiet spectacle of wealth and precision unfolding before them. Security stepped out first, moving with the synchronized ease of professionals trained to anticipate danger before it arrived. Their earpieces glinted in the afternoon light, their eyes scanning the surroundings. Everything was calculated. Everything was controlled. And then the rear door of the central car opened. Kai emerged. He wasn't just a face on a billboard anymore. He was a man of sharp lines, a suit tailored so perfectly it could have been cut from ambition itself, and an aura of contained power that seemed to bend the air around him. The confident lift of his chin, the steady stride, the subtle way his hands rested at his sides, it all screamed control, success, authority. And yet, beneath the surface, there was something else. Something familiar. Something that made Maya's chest tighten without warning. His eyes scanned the crowd automatically, a habit honed over years of navigating meetings, boardrooms, and high-profile events. And then, as if the world had slowed to a crawl, they locked onto Maya. Time fractured. The noise of the mall, the chatter of shoppers, the clatter of carts, the background music, faded into a distant hum. All Kai could see was her, the young woman he had loved and lost, the one he had left behind with a promise he had never intended to break. Maya, standing frozen with 3 little hands gripping hers, felt the same impossible shock. His gaze cut through her, straight to the place in her chest where memories of him had always lived, untouched by the years and hardships. Kai, she whispered, the name barely leaving her lips, as if speaking it louder might shatter the fragile reality forming between them. Kai's breath caught. He felt the world tilt, the sharp edges of his carefully constructed life blurring for a fraction of a second. This wasn't a photo. Not a billboard. Not a dream. This was her. Alive. 3 small girls clinging to her skirts, just as he had imagined, yet never truly known. His step faltered. His hands, which built empires and signed deals, twitched slightly, betraying the storm inside him. He took a careful, measured step forward, ignoring the stares of onlookers, ignoring the world that had once mocked him. All that mattered was the sight of Maya and the 3 echoes of his lost love. Hope, faith, and joy, sensing the tension in the air, looked up at him. Their little voices were curious, fearless, innocent. Daddy? Hope asked, tentative, pointing. Faith didn't wait. Mummy? That's him. That's the man from the picture. Joy, quieter, her tiny fingers wrapped around Maya's hand, whispered, Is he really our daddy? Maya. Maya's world tilted on its axis. She tried to speak, tried to pull the girls back, tried to explain, to warn them, but her voice caught in her throat. She was paralyzed, caught between the past and the impossible present, between fear and the ache of a love she had thought buried forever. Kai dropped his eyes from hers for a brief, trembling moment, taking in the little faces. The math of it hit him all at once. 3 tiny daughters. The proof of the life they could have shared. The years lost. The pain. The longing. His chest ached with a mixture of grief and awe, and for a heartbeat, the powerful CEO vanished, leaving only the boy who had loved her with everything he had. He knelt slowly, deliberately, ignoring security, ignoring the stares, ignoring the world. His eyes searched the small faces, lingering on each mittened hand, each curious gaze. His voice, low and trembling, broke the quiet. Maya. The name, soft and torn, carried 5 years of unspoken words, heartbreak, hope, and unanswered questions. And for the first time in years, the past and the present collided. The man he had become and the boy he had been were both standing here, facing the woman who had kept his heart alive without knowing it. The moment the three little girls realized who he was, something inside them surged, a force beyond caution, beyond hesitation. Fueled by the pure certainty of children, they didn't wait for instructions or permission. They broke from Maya's grasp, tumbling forward in a wave of pink jackets and flying hair, their laughter and cries mingling into a chaotic melody of joy. "Daddy! Daddy!" Faith shouted, grabbing at his legs. "Look, Daddy! We saw you on the big TV." Hope chimed in, nearly tripping over Joy, who followed, her small hand reaching for him as if she had known all along he belonged to them. Maya froze, her chest tightening. Her mind went blank. For a fraction of a second, she could not move, could not breathe. The world narrowed to the sight of her daughters, tiny bodies clinging to the man she had loved and lost, and the impossible recognition lighting up his face. "Girls! No! Come here!" she shouted, springing into action. Her voice trembled with panic, embarrassment, and an unspoken fear that the world was watching her children throw themselves into the arms of a stranger, or a ghost from the past. She reached for them, trying to pry them loose, her fingers tugging at Hope's coat, Joy's tiny hand. "I'm so sorry, Kai." "They don't," but he stopped her before the words could fully land. "Don't." It was a low, thunderous command, vibrating with a lifetime of emotion. His voice carried authority, grief, awe, and a dawning understanding all at once. Maya's heart skipped, caught in the storm of his presence. He wasn't angry at the children. He wasn't angry at her. He was stunned, and every ounce of control he had cultivated in boardrooms and on glossy billboards melted away in a heartbeat. Kai's eyes, sharp and intelligent, now softened, swirling with betrayal, disbelief, and a profound, overwhelming love. Slowly, deliberately, he lowered himself to the cold pavement. He ignored the security guards, who looked on in silent uncertainty. He ignored the stares of shoppers, some curious, some shocked. All that existed was the three little girls clutching at his legs and the woman standing frozen a few feet away. He looked into each of their faces, taking in the small, perfect details. Hope's serious, questioning gaze. Faith's uncontainable excitement. Joy's quiet, gentle curiosity. Each face was a mirror, reflecting pieces of him he had never stopped searching for. His hands, the hands that had built empires, that had shaken deals into existence, now trembled as they reached for Faith's mittened hand. Brushing a strand of hair from Hope's forehead, letting Joy pat his shoulder timidly. The smallest touches made him shiver, the weight of the years of absence, of unknown love, pressed down on him with every heartbeat. "Daddy," Faith whispered, her voice wavering slightly, as if testing the magic of reality. "Yes," Kai said softly, voice catching. "I'm here. I'm here." Hope laughed, clinging tighter. "You really are. You really came." Joy looked up at him, eyes wide and uncertain, then slowly smiled. "You're really our daddy." "Yes," he repeated, voice breaking, a tremor of awe in every syllable. "I'm really your daddy." Maya, standing a step away, felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. Relief, fear, guilt, and love collided violently inside her chest. She had built walls around herself to survive the years he was gone. She had told herself that protecting them from disappointment was her duty. But now she saw him, kneeling on the cold pavement, vulnerable and human, surrendering to the reality of the children they had created together. Kai slowly straightened slightly, still kneeling, still holding their hands. He looked up at Maya, and in that gaze was every question, every hurt, every longing of 5 years compressed into a single, shattering moment. And behind it all, a flicker of hope, hope that what had been lost might still be found. The crowd around them blurred into insignificance. Cars honked, strangers whispered, but none of it mattered. Time itself seemed to bend around the little tableau, a father kneeling, 3 daughters clutching him with the unquestioning certainty of love, and a mother watching, heart trembling, at the impossible reunion she had never imagined could happen. "Girls, don't let go," Kai whispered, his voice shaking as he tightened his hold just slightly, careful not to overwhelm them. I've waited so long, but I'm here now. The children giggled, clinging tighter, and in that laughter, in that touch, Maya saw the impossible made real. The boy she had loved, the man he had become, the children they had made, all converged on that cold pavement, beneath the indifferent eyes of the world, in a moment of pure, unbroken connection. Kai slowly rose from the cold pavement, careful not to disturb the delicate chaos of little hands and laughter still clinging to him. Joy, small and giggling, wiggled happily in his arms, her tiny legs dangling as she buried her face against his chest, still half laughing, half giggling. Faith's hand was in his, firm but tiny, her fingers laced with his in a way that made his heart ache with both awe and love. Hope stayed close to Maya, her small body pressed protectively against her mother's side, watching him with the seriousness of a child who could somehow sense the weight of the moment. The scene was surreal. It looked like a photograph frozen in time. The father who had been absent, the children who had waited without knowing it, the mother standing a few feet away, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear, shock, and something else she didn't dare name. "Cancel my meeting," Kai said to the man standing a few feet away, a hint of steel in his voice that allowed no argument, no delay. He didn't need to raise his voice. Authority hung around him like a cloak. "Cancel it. All of it." The assistant nodded quickly, pulling out a phone, but his eyes darted between the children and the man who had suddenly transformed a regular afternoon into something extraordinary. Kai turned his attention fully to Maya. The crowd around them blurred into insignificance. Car horns, mall announcements, and distant chatter faded. There was only her, only this moment, only the silent storm of unspoken words hanging between them. He stepped closer, but carefully, giving her space, though every inch carried the weight of the years he had been away. The wound in his eyes was raw, unmasked. Not anger, not shame, but a quiet, sharp pain, the hurt of love lost, of time stolen, of dreams shared and abandoned. "Maya," he said softly, almost a whisper, yet it carried through her chest like a drumbeat she couldn't escape. "Get in the car. We need to talk. All of us." Maya's fingers twitched, her palms sweating, heart racing. She opened her mouth, unsure of what to say, what excuse to offer, what truth to hide or reveal first. "Kai. The girls," she stammered, voice trembling, eyes darting to the three little faces still holding onto him, laughing, whispering, touching him as if they had always known him. "I know," Kai said gently, almost softly, rocking Joy slightly in his arms so she rested her head against his shoulder. "I can see them. I can see you. Now, just trust me. Just get in. All of us. Please." Faith tugged slightly at his hand, and he knelt down just enough to meet her eye. "We are coming, Daddy," she said firmly. Her small voice, so certain, so unshakable, pulled at him like gravity. Hope, who had been watching Maya's hesitation, pressed a hand to her mother's arm. "Mummy, his ours. His really ours," she whispered, her eyes wide and shining. Maya's chest tightened. The surge of emotion she had tried to suppress for 5 long years crashed over her. Fear, guilt, longing, relief, all tangled together in a storm she could not hold back. Slowly, almost reluctantly, she reached for Kai's hand, then the girl's hands, feeling the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders. "You're really here," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm here," Kai replied, his own voice rough with unshed tears and the raw power of love reunited. "And I'm not going anywhere. Not now. Not ever again. Get in the car, Maya. All of us. It's time we talk. Really talk." Maya swallowed, nodded, and together they moved toward the sleek black cars waiting silently at the curb. Each step carried the weight of the past, the fragility of the present, and the promise of a future they had never dared imagine. The children's laughter, Joy's giggles, Faith's determined grip, and Hope's watchful eyes made the impossible real. The air was crisp, alive with possibility, and for the first time in 5 years, the threads of a shattered love began to weave themselves into something tangible, fragile, and breathtakingly new. The car moved through the streets like a silent bubble, isolating them from the clamor of the world outside. The girls' voices filled the cabin, small and relentless, like a river of curiosity spilling over every boundary. "Do you have a big house, Daddy?" Hope asked, bouncing slightly in her seat. Faith leaned forward, eyes wide. "And do you have lots of toys? Can we play with them?" Joy, ever the soft one, whispered, "Do you know Santa?" Kai smiled, a quiet, almost overwhelmed smile. He looked at them, mesmerized by their energy, by the spark of life and innocence they carried. pieces of himself reflected in each tiny face. "Yes," he said softly. "I know Santa. And I do have a home. But the biggest part isn't the house. It's being together. All of us." Maya stayed still, her hands tight in her lap, chest constricted with fear and guilt. She felt frozen in time, a statue of everything she had carried alone for 5 years. The girls' laughter and chatter were almost unbearable, reminders of what she had hidden, what she had lost, what had never been hers to protect alone. Kai glanced at her in the rearview mirror, his eyes soft but searching, as if asking a question he didn't know how to put into words. "Why didn't you tell me?" The car arrived at the penthouse. The doors opened to a modern, spacious apartment. It was elegant and clean, warm in design but strangely empty of life. The kind of place that could hold a family, yet had never known the chaos and laughter that made a house a home. The housekeeper appeared, carrying steaming mugs of hot chocolate. She knelt to the girls' level, offering the drinks with a smile. "Here you go, little ones. Hot chocolate for everyone." The girls' attention shifted immediately. Joy wriggled happily in Kai's arms, sipping her chocolate. Faith examined the sleek lines of the apartment, curiosity blazing in her eyes, while Hope clutched her cup and lingered near Maya, quietly observing everything. It was in that brief, sweet distraction that the dam broke. Kai closed the distance between them, his eyes dark with years of longing, anger, and pain. The apartment was quiet now, except for the soft murmur of the girls' excitement. His voice, low and raw, cut through it like a blade. "Why?" he asked, each word trembling. "Why didn't you tell me? Was it to spare me? Or was it because you agreed with them? That I wasn't enough?" Maya's lips quivered. Her throat tightened. Tears pricked at the corners of her eyes, blurring her vision. She tried to speak, tried to explain, but the weight of 5 years pressed on her chest. The words came in a rush, raw and unfiltered. I found out I was pregnant after you left," she said, voice breaking. I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared. My parents, they disowned me. They said I'd ruined everything. They said you'd never want us. And I thought maybe they were right." Kai's face softened slightly, but the hurt lingered. His arms hung at his sides, taut, as though restraining the urge to reach out. I thought you'd see the children as anchors holding you back," Maya continued, tears streaming now. "I didn't want to be the chain that stopped you. I thought I was protecting you, from us." Kai's chest heaved. The anger in his eyes was a mask over something deeper. Hurt, disbelief, grief, and a love that refused to be quieted. "Maya," he whispered, voice low but fierce, "I didn't need riches. I didn't need an easy life. I needed you. And I would have loved them, all of us, together." Maya sank slightly, relief and guilt colliding violently in her chest. She wanted to reach out, to touch him, to beg forgiveness for a secret that had been too heavy to carry alone. I thought I was protecting you," she repeated, more softly this time. "But I see now. I was only protecting myself." Kai stepped closer, bridging the distance between them slowly, carefully. His hand hovered, uncertain, over hers, then finally touched her arm gently, as if testing the reality of her presence. "You don't have to protect me," he said. "You never did. I'm here now. And I want all of you. Every part of you. Every part of them. Every part of us." Maya's tears fell freely now, and she finally let herself be pulled toward him, into the warmth of his presence, into the fragile, terrifying hope that what had been lost could still be found. The girls, sensing the shift, came closer. Joy's giggle floated through the air, Faith's eyes sparkled, and Hope pressed against Maya's side, small fingers clutching the edge of her coat. And in that chaotic, imperfect, beautiful tableau, the first fragile threads of a new beginning began to weave themselves between the four of them. Kai's hands dropped to his sides, the fire of his anger fading slowly, replaced by something heavier, grief, raw and unrelenting. His chest tightened as if the years of longing, hurt, and missed moments were pressing down on him all at once. His eyes, sharp and commanding just moments ago, softened, glistening with unshed tears. He gestured broadly around the penthouse, the sleek, empty space that had once been the symbol of all he had fought for. "You were my dream, Maya," he said, voice breaking, almost whispering, though it carried across the quiet apartment. "You. Everything else, the money, this." He let his hands sweep through the air, indicating the pristine modernity of the penthouse, the success he had clawed toward. It was just the byproduct of trying to prove them wrong, trying to prove that I could be more, that I could survive without love, that I could matter to the world. But it all meant nothing because I lost everything that truly mattered. Maya's hands covered her face. She shook, shoulders trembling. Tears fell freely down her cheeks, and the sound of her quiet, broken sobs filled the apartment more powerfully than any argument ever could. From the living room, the girls had been quietly exploring, fascinated by the sleek lines and strange new objects. But they sensed the shift, the way the air had thickened, the way Maya's sobs broke through the muffled hum of the house. Slowly, they wandered toward the source of the grief, their little footsteps soft but deliberate. Joy, the gentle peacemaker, noticed first. She toddled up to Kai, her tiny hand reaching up, patting his arm lightly. "Don't make Mummy sad," she said, her voice small but firm. "She cries sometimes at night, looking at your picture." Faith followed, still holding his hand, her wide eyes searching his face for understanding. "Mummy's happy now," she added softly, "but she's scared too. You can fix that, Daddy, can't you?" Hope lingered behind, pressed close to Maya's side, her little brow furrowed with the seriousness only a child could muster. "We are all yours now," she whispered. "You can help us." The words struck him like a tidal wave. The anger, the betrayal, the years of silence, they all shattered under the weight of this innocent, unfiltered truth. His knees bent slightly as he knelt down, arms spreading wide. Without a word, he gathered all three girls into a tight, desperate hug, the kind of hug that held more than bodies. It held hearts, years of longing, and every unspoken apology between them. Joy giggled into his chest, Faith's small hands clung tightly to his shoulders, and Hope leaned in, pressing against him and Maya simultaneously, bridging the gap that years had created. He breathed in their scent, the mix of shampoo, winter air, and childhood sweetness filling his lungs like oxygen he had been denied for far too long. He could feel the steady beat of their tiny hearts, rapid and alive, and it anchored him in a reality he had only dared imagine in dreams. His eyes lifted over their heads to Maya. The sight of her trembling, tear-streaked face, the softness in her eyes despite her pain, ignited something deep and unyielding within him. The love he had for his children was instant, fierce, and absolute. There was no hesitation, no calculation, only certainty. The love he felt for Maya, however, it was a tangled flame. Wounded, battered, yet never extinguished. It wrapped around him like a storm he had longed to walk into, fierce and terrifying, yet utterly necessary. Every heartbeat, every breath, every shiver of grief and hope collided into one truth. He could not imagine life without her. Without them. Maya's hands fell from her face, trembling as they brushed against his arm, tentative, almost asking permission to return. Kai's gaze softened, lingering on her lips, her eyes, the small lines that grief and worry had etched onto her young face. He whispered, almost to himself, almost to her, "I've waited, for all of you. And now, I'm here. I promise. I'm not leaving again." The girls laughed softly, tiny giggles of relief, their small bodies pressed together with his. Hope's hand reached for Maya's, pulling her closer. Joy patted his arm again, as if sealing the promise. Faith rested her head against his chest, whispering, "You're really ours, Daddy." And in that quiet, tender, chaotic embrace, everything fell into place. The walls built by fear, by shame, by time, began to crumble. The years of separation, the pain of absence, the heavy weight of the past, they all dissolved into the simple, inarguable truth of what mattered most: love. For the first time in 5 long years, the fragments of their fractured family felt whole. It wasn't a sudden, perfect reunion. The penthouse, despite its warmth and elegance, held the quiet echo of years lost. The laughter of the girls mingled with the soft hum of the city outside, yet the weight of 5 years of absence pressed heavily between Kai and Maya. Neither words nor gestures could erase the hurt, the uncertainty, the long stretch of time that had separated them. They had lived through separate lives, carried private griefs, and yet now, the impossible truth sat before them. A father had found his family. Kai looked down at the 3 small faces clinging to him, their eyes wide with trust, their hands gripping him like lifelines. He inhaled slowly, savoring the weight of them, the reality of this moment. His chest swelled with a fierce, protective love. He let his gaze travel from their little hands to Maya, standing a few steps back, silent, fragile, yet impossibly strong. She had carried so much alone, and now he could see every thread of her sacrifice, every sleepless night, every quiet, hidden sorrow. He spoke, his voice low but unwavering, carrying a solemn weight. "You will never struggle again," he said, words deliberate, ringing with promise. "Not for food, not for warmth, not for love. I will be their father. I will earn that title every day. Every day. I will show them, show you, that I am here, that I am theirs." Maya's lips trembled. Tears slid down her cheeks, and she looked at him, searching for motives, for conditions, for the slightest hint of expectation or demand. But there was none. Only truth. Only love. Only a vow carved from years of longing and regret. Kai stepped closer, his movements careful, respectful, but firm, closing the space between them without crowding it. "I'm not asking you to stay with me," he said gently, his eyes locking onto hers. "I'm not asking for more than I've earned. I'm asking you to let me in, into their lives. Let me be their father. Let me provide a home, security, and my presence. Allow me to know them, to guide them, to love them fully." Maya swallowed hard, the lump in her throat making words impossible at first. She had imagined this moment countless times in her dreams, reunions where guilt melted away instantly, where everything resolved itself in perfect harmony. But this was real. Painful, messy, emotional, and deeply, achingly human. Do you really mean it?" she asked softly, voice trembling like a leaf caught in a breeze. "Not just for them, but for me too." Kai reached out, tentatively lifting her chin with the gentlest of touches. "For you," he said, voice breaking slightly. "For all of us. I want to rediscover the woman you've become. The one I never got to know while I built my life. I want to meet her, Maya, and I want to meet them. I want to be there for them in every way I should have been 5 years ago." Maya's tears fell freely now, and she felt a rush of emotions that had been pent up for half a decade. Relief, fear, hope, and love. The weight of responsibility she had carried alone finally shifted. She realized that she didn't have to face the world alone anymore. She didn't have to protect them from the man who was always meant to be their father. The girls, sensing the gravity of the moment, drew closer. Joy reached out to clasp Kai's hand, Faith pressed her small head against his chest, and Hope, ever observant, nudged Maya gently. "See, Mummy," she whispered. "He's really ours. He's really here." Maya nodded, a shaky smile forming through her tears. "Yes," she whispered back. "He's really here." Kai's lips curved into a small, almost tentative smile, but his eyes held fire and resolve. "Then we begin here," he said. "Not with promises that we can't keep, not with fairy tales, not with illusions. We begin with the truth. I am here now, and I will stay. And together, we'll build what we lost. Slowly, if we have to, but we'll build it." Maya felt her heart crack and mend in the same instant. She had feared losing herself, feared the vulnerability of allowing him back into their lives. But now, standing in the warm, modern, yet empty space that could soon become a home, she understood. Love, true love, didn't erase the past, it embraced it. It didn't demand perfection, it asked only for presence. Kai extended a hand to her, not commanding, not insisting, but offering. "Let me in," he said softly. "Let me love them, let me love you, let me be their father. Please." Maya hesitated only for a moment, and then, slowly, she placed her hand in his. In that simple gesture, 5 years of separation, pain, and longing dissolved into a fragile, trembling hope. It was not a fairy tale. It was not perfect. But it was real. And for the first time in years, they could begin again. The apartment smelled of cinnamon and slightly burnt toast, mingling with the lingering aroma of last night's cocoa and the faint perfume of winter air drifting in through the open window. Maya's small living room, usually a chaotic blend of toys, papers, and scattered art supplies, was alive with warmth and laughter. The little Christmas tree stood proudly in the corner, its tiny lights twinkling softly, surrounded by a few carefully chosen gifts, modest but thoughtful, each one meant to carry love more than luxury. Kai sat cross-legged on the floor, sleeves rolled up on a soft sweater, jeans slightly worn at the knees. He was a picture of domestic chaos, utterly at ease, entirely human. Between his hands were colorful Lego pieces, scattered across the rug like a miniature city under construction. The girls were enthralled, building and knocking down towers in equal measure, their laughter ringing freely through the room. Kai's laughter joined theirs, rich and unguarded, The kind of laughter that didn't come with expectation or restraint, the kind they hadn't heard since flashbacks of long-ago afternoons filled with dreams and whispered promises. Joy waved a bright red block at him. "Daddy, no. You can't put the roof there. It will fall." Kai grinned, pretending to frown. "Ah, but this is my genius idea. The tallest castle in the world." Faith shook her head, crossing her little arms. "Daddy, we said the tower goes first. The tower. You listen." Hope leaned against Maya's side, holding her cup of cocoa, observing the scene like a little general surveying her troops. "Mummy," she whispered, "look, Daddy's really playing with us. Really with us." Maya leaned against the kitchen doorway, hands resting lightly on the counter. Her eyes softened as she watched them, the morning light catching the faint shimmer of tears in her lashes. For the first time in years, her tired eyes held more than fatigue. They held fragile, hopeful peace. She felt her chest loosen, the tight coil of anxiety and guilt unwinding as she observed this little world of chaos, laughter, and love forming right before her. Hope ran toward her, dragging Kai by the hand. "Mummy, Daddy helped us make breakfast for you." Kai followed, slightly stumbling over a stray Lego block, holding out a plate with a star-shaped piece of toast, slightly browned more than intended, yet perfect in its imperfection. He grinned sheepishly. "Slightly overcooked," he admitted, but made with full love and zero complaints. Maya laughed softly, the sound catching in her throat. "It looks perfect," she said, her voice trembling, warm with gratitude. She knelt to hug Hope, letting Kai's hand linger in hers for a moment, a quiet, shared connection that held more than words ever could. The girls clambered around, tugging at her, sharing stories of Lego battles and chocolate spills, oblivious to the years of heartache that had preceded this morning. Kai bent down, kissing Joy's forehead, ruffling Faith's hair, smiling at Hope with an ease that spoke of a man slowly, painfully, reclaiming his place in their lives. "No grand declarations today," Kai said softly, almost to himself, almost to her. "Just us. Just this." Maya nodded, feeling the truth of it resonate in her chest. No words could capture the enormity of the journey they had traveled, the pain they had endured, the love that had been withheld and yet survived. But here, in the warm chaos of her small apartment, in the sound of laughter, in the sight of the girls and the man who was finally theirs, everything else faded. The camera might have pulled back then, through the frosty window, capturing a frame of light and warmth in the midst of winter's cold. The little family sat together, imperfect and chaotic, yet whole for the first time. The tree lights flickered against their faces, the mugs of cocoa steaming, the slightly burnt toast lying on the plate, a quiet testament to beginnings rather than endings. No wedding bells rang. No grand declarations were made. The story ended not with a celebration of wealth, status, or perfection, but with the first page of a new chapter, fragile, complicated, and yet deeply loving. The greatest gift found that morning wasn't under the tree, wasn't wrapped in ribbons. It was the reunion of 3 little girls with their father, the reclamation of a mother's heart, and the chance to rebuild a family that had survived absence, fear, and silence. And for the first time in years, as Kai, Maya, and the girls laughed together over spilled cocoa and toppled Lego towers, the future seemed not frightening, but full of possibility. Imperfect, yes, but theirs. Whole, at last, and waiting to be lived. The apartment was alive in a way it had never been before. Toys were still scattered across the floor, Lego towers leaning precariously, a stuffed giraffe perched on the couch arm, crayons and half-finished drawings littering the coffee table, but it felt like home, not chaos. The air smelled faintly of breakfast, mixed with the lingering aroma of winter candles. Kai moved through it with ease now, comfortable in the rhythms of a life he had once only glimpsed from afar. He carried a laundry basket with a pile of tiny socks and mittens, careful not to step on any stray toys. Joy ran past him, trailing a ribbon behind her like a streamer. Faith held a tablet, showing him a drawing she had made of the family, her version of all of us together, with stick figures and squiggly hearts. Hope tugged at his hand, asking for help with a particularly tricky Lego bridge. "You see, Daddy," she said, pointing to a wobbly column of blocks. "If you put the green one first, it won't fall." Kai knelt beside her, laughing quietly. "I see, Hope. You're the expert. Teach me your ways." He let her guide him, his hand steady on the pieces as she instructed, the kind of patience only love could teach. Maya watched from the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup. She smiled, soft and genuine, as she noticed how the girls flocked to Kai naturally, how he had become not just a visitor in their lives, but part of its very pulse. There was no grand drama here, just the quiet, steady proof of belonging, of healing. Kai glanced toward her, eyes meeting hers across the room. No words were needed. The bond was clear in the small gestures, the way he wiped a stray smear of chocolate from Joy's cheek, the way he guided Faith's hand to hold hers while crossing the room, the way he made Hope's laugh brighter than it had ever been alone. Later, at the small kitchen table, the girls sat in a chaotic jumble, munching on toast shaped like stars and hearts, butter melting in random patterns. Kai poured hot chocolate, careful to let the whipped cream float on top, while Joy insisted on sprinkling cinnamon over everyone's cup. "Daddy, this is the best breakfast ever," Faith said, cheeks pink from excitement. "It's because we made it together," Kai replied, smiling at Maya over the edge of the counter. His eyes were warm, steady, full of quiet gratitude. Maya shook her head, laughing softly through her tears. "You've made this easy. Hard, but easy in the best way." Kai walked over, leaning lightly against the counter beside her. "You've always done everything alone," he said gently. "Now we do it together. That's the difference." Evenings were now filled with small, domestic joys. The girls fought over bedtime stories, tugging Kai onto the couch, piling blankets around him as they demanded different versions of Once Upon a Time. Maya sat nearby, sketching quietly, stealing glances at them, at him, at the life that had slowly, tenderly begun to knit itself together. There were challenges too, mornings when no one wanted to get dressed, a spilled cup of cocoa on the rug, disagreements over Lego rules, but they were small ripples in a larger, steady current of belonging. The arguments ended in laughter or compromise. The messes were cleaned together. The love was unmistakable, tangible, and constant. One crisp evening, Kai carried Joy on his shoulders, Faith holding his hand, and Hope skipping beside Maya. They walked through the frost-tipped streets to the little park nearby, the city lights twinkling like stars. Joy laughed as Kai spun her around, Faith squealed as he lifted her high, and Hope tugged Maya's hand, saying, "Mummy, isn't this the best Christmas ever?" Maya smiled, her heart full, her gaze resting on Kai. He smiled back, eyes soft but steady, reflecting everything they had survived, everything they had built, and everything that was still to come. It wasn't a perfect story. There were no fairy tale endings, no magical solutions. But it was theirs. They were whole in ways that mattered. The scars of the past were still there, woven into the tapestry of their lives, but they no longer defined them. In the warmth of the evening, as the girls fell asleep wrapped in blankets and soft toys, Maya and Kai sat side by side, hands brushing, eyes meeting. The future was uncertain, messy, and complicated, but it was theirs to live. And in that small, cluttered apartment, filled with laughter, love, and the quiet strength of survival, a family had finally found its rhythm. The greatest gift they had discovered wasn't tea wrapped in paper or tied with a ribbon. It was each other.